is October 12th, 2025, and I have to apologize, y'all. I had planned to take a couple of days off, and those days off just happened to fall around all of the breaking news that seemed to be nonstop surrounding the ceasefire in Gaza. So I'm sorry that I was not here to cover it and to provide you with more ongoing coverage as it was happening. I'm back now, ready to talk about what we know so far about what is included in this ceasefire deal, how it plays a role in Trump's overall 20-point peace plan for Gaza, and what that means for Hamas. Because, of course, we know that in this 20-point plan, there is no Hamas, right? The group is demilitarized, they're disbanded, and it's the US and its regional proxies that are moving in to take control of the Gaza Strip. And as you have a ceasefire for Gaza, you also have increasing concerns that the US and Israel are preparing for the next phase of war against Iran. And the fact that you have the Iranian foreign minister saying that Netanyahu told Putin to relay the message that he wanted Russia to be the messenger to Iran to declare that Israel does not want war. Yeah, that's not exactly sitting right with me. We got into all of that and more on this week's episode of Sanctioned, which is, of course, an exclusive weekly deep dive series for my paid subscribers. So let's take a listen to a free preview of this week's episode now. And let's start with the major announcement that you have a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Now, this is supposed to include the release of the remaining Israeli hostages, of which Israel believes about 20 hostages are still alive. And as Hamas has agreed to release them, you also have Israel agreeing to release around 250 Palestinian prisoners and 1,700 detainees from Gaza. Reports say that increased amounts of aid will also enter the Strip, and a map shared by the White House indicates this is the first of 3 stages of Israeli withdrawal, with these intended to occur during the latter phases of Trump's plan. Now, I think it's fair to say that this agreement has been met with both excitement and skepticism, right? Excitement at the fact that there's going to be a ceasefire for Gaza, however long the amount of time is that the bombs stop falling and aid is allowed in and Palestinians stop dying, right? We can look at that and say that that is a good thing. At the same time, there's also the skepticism about whether the US and Israel can be trusted at all. And if you followed me for any amount of time, then you probably know that I don't think that they can be trusted. I am very, very skeptical that they would allow anything to happen that would be good for the Palestinian people without then it being bad for someone else down the road, or good for the Palestinian people while allowing the Palestinians the right to self-determination, the right to any sort of justice for the genocide that they have endured, not just over the last 2 years, but over the last several decades. Because that's the thing, we have to remember that we are now entering into the first phase of not just some random deal, but Trump's 20-point plan. And Trump's 20-point plan does not include any version in which the Palestinian people are allowed to determine for themselves what they want to do on their land or who they want to be in charge. Instead, this 20-point plan is all about disarming Hamas, right? They say that Hamas is going to be demilitarized as a group in some phase eventually. And they also say that the US and all of its regional proxies, that they are going to be in charge of creating this force to come in and to govern Gaza. So that doesn't really have anything to do with the Palestinian people or their choice, who they want to be in charge, what they want the Gaza Strip to look like. No, this is just the US coming in, and instead of Israel bombing Gaza and destroying everything, this is the US now coming in and saying, okay, hey, we're here, we're going to be in control. That is what the plan is. It, in fact, reminds me of what Trump has been saying all along since the beginning of the year. He's been telling you, look, our plan is to take over and to quote unquote rebuild. The destruction phase, right? That phase of the genocide, the horrific, terrible destruction that has taken place over just the last 2 years. As we know, Israel has been destroying Gaza for much longer than that, and the US is right there with them. But over the last 2 years, you've had horrific amounts of destruction all across the Gaza Strip, and that has happened on purpose to make Gaza unlivable, to put the Palestinian people in a position where they're essentially told, hey, if you want to stay here, go for it. But if you want humanitarian aid, if you want things to be buildings to be rebuilt around you, oh, well, then you're going to have to allow this fancy new force made up of the US and Israel and all of the US proxies in the region to come in and to control things, to come in and to create a terrifying little techno state as they work on this technology and prepare to roll it out all across the United States. Because that's the thing, the US has so many different forms of special interest when it comes to the Gaza Strip. Like it is mind-boggling and also extremely concerning. And I don't think that there's nearly enough of a conversation about this, that the Palestinians are being used as the testing ground. And the US has no plans to just stop there. The US is also planning to get even more involved, as you have reports from anonymous officials saying that the Pentagon is sending about 200 troops to Israel to help support and monitor the ceasefire deal in Gaza as part of a team that includes partner nations, non-governmental organizations, and private sector players. And y'all may be looking at this and thinking, wait a second, didn't Trump do away with USAID at the start of his term? I remember the good old days when it seemed like Trump was going to just get rid of all of the foreign funding and NGOs. And yeah, actually, he just had USAID absorbed within the State Department so that Marco Rubio could have more endless control. And now you see the fact that they're not doing away with the funding, they're just directing it to the causes, the places where they really want it to go. And as is the case here, they're looking at Gaza and they're like, hey, sure, we'll be happy to rebuild, just give up all of your rights. Or even and I say give up all of your rights as if the Palestinians really even have rights left, given everything that they have endured under this occupation from Israel and by extension from the US. So they're telling them, hey, what little right you have left, we need you to give it up to us, and we're going to make life great for you. We're going to come in here, we're going to build some buildings, we're going to flood this strip of land with humanitarian aid, we're going to turn Gaza into whatever we want. Now, you may be looking at this and going, wait a second, we have this plan coming from the US in which the end goal is for Hamas to be demilitarized and essentially disbanded, right? They're saying, oh, members of Hamas can go as refugees to other countries. They can be free to do whatever they want. They just can't be any sort of a governing force for Gaza. So what is Hamas doing right now as they are the ones agreeing to at least the initial phase of this deal? Well, you have CNN reporting that Hamas is reasserting control of parts of Gaza not occupied by Israeli forces as the ceasefire takes hold, amid continuing uncertainty about security in the territory if the group is disarmed. The report cited a Telegram channel affiliated with Hamas, which said a number of collaborators and informants were apprehended and arrested in Gaza City after it was proven that they were involved in spying for the enemy, as well as participating in the assassination of several resistance members. You also have a spokesman for Hamas telling reporters that representatives for the group will not attend the signing ceremony for the US-mediated deal in Egypt on Monday. He also voiced misgivings about certain points in the plan promoted by Trump. So I'm watching this very curious and again, very skeptical to see where this goes, because you have this plan that aims for the destruction of Hamas, yet Hamas is the side agreeing to the initial phase of the plan. And on top of that, giving up the remaining Israeli hostages. Now, that is a really big factor here, because for the last 2 years now, you've had Hamas holding on to these hostages, holding on to them as the little bit of leverage that they have. And I'm really curious to see what happens after they give up those hostages. I believe the latest reports say that it's supposed to happen, or at least supposed to start on Monday. So if Hamas comes forward, they say, here's the 20 remaining hostages, then What's to stop Israel from turning around and targeting the Gaza Strip like never before? They don't have any Israeli hostages to claim that they need to be worried about, despite the fact that several of those hostages have been killed by Israel over the last 2 years. But I still remain worried that Israel is going to be good on their word, right? That they are going to negotiate in good faith in any sense of the word. Now, I will say that when you look at the language, right, when you see kind of what we're seeing from at least the public statements that are being put forth, they're acting like this is over, this is it, we're all good to go here. But I just still do not trust Netanyahu or any of the genocidal right-wing maniacs in his government, because you still have many of them looking at this and thinking that they are so close. And that was a preview of this week's episode of Sanctioned. You can catch the full video available right now if you sign up as a paid subscriber over on my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. You can also find it as a paid subscriber on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/rachelblevins. As always, thank y'all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.